Not real happy with that right now, so I'm gonna pull these guys off. How worthless is a Discovery without low or center lock diff? Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch. Today we have a little downtime from building the new Rover shop. So I figure we might as well get back to the LS3 swap Defender and try and figure out some wiring. The shop is coming along nicely, but before we can work on this guy here, I'm gonna have to kind of organize the disaster mess I've made in here over the last week of us slamming the pole barn up. The little garage just kind of became a disaster. So we're gonna get some workspace back so we can mess with this. I need to tackle this guy too, gotta clean this up. Carburetor for a 60s Oliver tractor. $1 million worth of screws. I honestly don't even know where to go with everything. But I guess we'll stuff it somewhere. Man, I can't wait to have some room back. So I stopped at Ted's, grabbed a chunk of aluminum out of our scrap pile so I can get some brackets made up for the ECU and fuse box. Also stopped at Lowe's because we need some 6-inch R4 screws for the roof on the building. I've used up everything Menards has in stock, so I was hoping Lowe's would have something, to no avail. Who knows, but while we were there, grab some degreaser so I can fill the ultrasonic cleaner up and get this carb nice and new looking. Much better. Should be able to start actually doing some work now. We're gonna take a walk down to the hardware department. It's just past the shop, right over there. Need these. And these. Sasha, let's go back up. All right, so dug out all the stuff we need. We got our thread cert tool. We're gonna throw some of those guys in the frame and the bulkhead. And we got some 6x1 bolts for those. And then our little cushion clamps. So those guys will go along the frame rail and whatnot that we tie into to hold the wiring in place. But like I said on the last video in the Defender, we wanna get all of this sorted out before we paint the chassis. So everything's all nice and coated. No need to drill after the fact. So the first thing we're gonna start off with is mounting the painless fuse panel. We're gonna go right about here, which is gonna be in the factory-ish location. Then once we get the dash and everything in, we can make a nice leather cover, kind of like the factory one, just a bit more cleaned up in front of the shifter here. So I'm just gonna mark this guy out. So here's our little panel laid out. So everything marked with an R is getting a riv nut, so we can thread that guy in. The other 4 holes are gonna be through holes, and we will mark those out and riv nut through the bulkhead for those guys. So there's a plate all made up. That guy's gonna bolt on right there. All right, so we got that all mounted up nice and sturdy. So now that we have that located, we can start running our harness. You gotta start at the beginning. Otherwise, if you move that guy after you have everything else laid out, it's gonna mess everything up. I'm trying to do this the least amount of times as possible. All right, so now we're gonna separate everything out, get it going to the right spot. Just went through, this stuff goes to the instrument panel. So I'm gonna get it facing all the right directions, then we can start clamping it down. All right, so all this stuff here is going to be in the dashboard. That stuff there is going to go to the engine, so I'll kind of clip these and get it moved. This stuff is for the rear. I'm going to figure out where I want to run those. That might go up through and underneath in the tunnel. Undetermined yet. I got the taillight section fed through the firewall. I'm going to route this down along the transmission tunnel. What do we got going on there? I gotta feed a little more. Now I got it fed in there. We'll have a grommet on that guy once it's all sorted. Now this isn't 100% final. I'll probably switch this. Not real happy with that right now, so I'm gonna pull these guys off. So that way it just is a little cleaner. So building a fresh custom harness, I don't want to call it tedious because I enjoy it, but it is time consuming. There's going to be a lot of stuff that could switch back and forth. I want this one to be as clean as possible. Don't want to see a bunch of rat's nest everywhere. So when you pull that cover off, you want it to look nice. You don't want it to look like that, like you just kind of threw some stuff in. This is all going to have to wait until we start installing the dash. So that's as far as the instrument cluster stuff is going to get, so I'm going to zip tie that all into a bundle here. All right, so that's getting a little closer to something I'm happy with. This will get a little more vertical, but we gotta sort where that goes first before we can finally lock it down. Once everything's in place, I'll probably shorten both of these guys just so it's a little better routing and not just extra looped up. Those go into the back of the fuse panel so we can knock those down. I'm gonna undo this guy again, tuck those in here and have them come out with that. That way it's just one T. Let's try that. There, a little happier with that. So instead of having it V off, we just have one little branch going into the engine bay. I think I'm fairly happy with that. All right, so here's the stuff that runs to the rear. I gotta separate this one out. Some of it goes to the engine and some of it goes to the front lights. But we're gonna take a quick little break from that guy while it is still light out. The other day when we took the Eco up the start of the little Rover test trails, tried to put the transfer case in low, and it wouldn't go in low, or engage the center lock differential. And how worthless is a Discovery without low or center lock diff? So we got to address that. I'm kind of ashamed to admit that we've had this thing around that long, and that's the first time I tried to engage the center lock diff. The Eco is currently a little bit of a job box for the shop build. Kind of got tired of walking up the hill to the house every night, carrying all the tools. So as we do around here, the Rovers are storage containers. But the problem on D1s usually lies down in here. If you don't use the linkage that often, it freezes up. Sasha, we need a center lock differential, don't we? We got the supervisor making sure I'm doing everything right. Not surprisingly, in the 217,000 miles this has traveled, it is missing some hardware. We got the side-to-side pivot, so that's good yet. So we need to focus on this one here. We didn't even have to use the persuader. It works, Sash. A little dark, but we have our center lock diff again. Exciting times. We got a fully functioning Eco Disco once again. All right, back to our regular scheduled wiring program. So we are now split off. All this stuff pertains to the engine, and this is all lighting. So we'll get that guy mounted up and then split off again with the back going to the back, front going to the front. Probably a smart way to do that. So this is obviously just roughed out right now, but that's about what I'm thinking for the front wiring. Routing, we'll tuck this up high along the end of the fender well, like so. We'll have a couple more cushion clamps along there, and it'll be sucked up nicely and hidden. I'm just not gonna pop those holes until I get this ran through. And for the rear, we'll be on top of the frame rail until about this location on the other side, and then we're gonna be inside the frame rail all the way to the rear. So we're starting to get the disaster sorted to an extent, but we're gonna keep this one short on like all the wiring going on in here, and that's where we're gonna end this video on the Defender. Parts update, everything's still lost somewhere in between here and England. No one seems to know where in between here and England, but hopefully soon we either have another shipment to replace those or DHL finds them in the back of an airplane. Who knows? But as always, appreciate you guys watching. If you want, subscribe. You'll see more of this LS3 swap Defender and other Rovers, as always, and some other stuff trickled in, along with building the Rover shop, which will be the next video. We got trusses and a boom lift showing up. Hopefully it'll be covered soon. And we will catch you on the next one.